the way that we work in order only to get what we need to get back through the door on Monday morning to work again, and a mechanism whereby we buy those products. Once the surplus has been exploited from us and gets to the level of the state, then as it is at the state level, that surplus is assigned. And that's why you have the different parties actually contributing to elections, saying, well, is it going to be manufacturing capital or interest capital or rent capital that is going to benefit out of this? And they will all advertise, they will always all appeal to the electorate, etc. And then on the basis of, certainly in the free economy, rather than a managed economy where you'll decide what happens within the state, within a free economy you have elections, and sections of the capitalist class will win or lose accordingly. They'll basically put that to the electorate. As far as we're concerned, it doesn't matter. So when you're talking about whether socialism can work without capitalism, it's an irrelevant question. Because what you're trying to say is that the entire infrastructure of society cannot work without capitalism. Whereas what we would say is that most of the infrastructure of capitalism already works without capitalism. It's only as it applies to us and milking us that capitalism applies in its free market form. Everything else is just the same as before in private society, private ownership, whereby basically you accumulate a surplus at the level of the state and different interest groups fight for it. What we are saying is that we are going to make ourselves that interest group and we will assign that surplus. We will then turn round to the microeconomics of how we assign our lives and we will say, well, damn it, we're not going to be working for a wage anymore. But that does not mean the same kind of change that you're necessarily thinking. It will certainly be a change as far as we're concerned, it will be fantastic. But in terms of the way that society works, so, I mean, for example, the way that the civil service will work, it won't be the same.
This makes no sense to me at all. I just don't follow what you're saying. Sorry, it's not a clear item here. I know it's, embarrassing, but I mean...
No, I understand.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can phrase it again for me then. I don't follow it at all.
Will you allow me to rephrase?
Please do.
Quickly, though, could you say
Okay.
that?
I shall rephrase. I shall stand up and rephrase. What I'm saying is that capitalism works at the level of our interaction with society as workers. Basically, what is happening is that we go to work, we get a wage, we go to the shop, we spend our wages for rent, spend our wages on mortgage, we go home, we live, we die. That's how capitalism works. However, what happens is that we work for a wage. We work for the amount of money that it takes to basically put us back through the factory door on a Monday morning, or the office door on a Monday morning, or whatever it is. That's how much we work for. Enough basically to keep us alive so that we mortgage our house when we're retired and we die with pennies in our pockets. That's how it works. However, what happens from there is that all of the surplus that we create when we work for 6 hours, for example, when we work for 6 hours and we take back the equivalent of 2 hours labour, those other 4 hours labour, whether you count it in money or however you count it, whether it's we create 3 yachts and take one home or whatever, what's happened is that there is a surplus that has been created, and that surplus is no longer ours. Because through the manufacturing process, through the process of going to the office, we tell ourselves that it is not ours. We tell ourselves that we get what we are worth as a wage rather than what we've actually made. So we create a surplus, and that surplus is not ours. When that surplus gets to the level of the state, capitalists are not fooled the same way that we are over it. Capitalists fight over that surplus in a very all against all kind of way. Now, within the matter of elections, for example, you will find that Labour parties and Conservative parties and Liberal parties will all be representing certain sections of the economy, and whoever manages to fight that out within the particular year of that election, whichever way the economy is going, basically the capitalist class as a whole throw open for us to decide, but only within their terms. Yeah? But the point is that this has nothing to do with us. Capitalism works for us on the scale that John is saying, of like the free market capitalism. Yeah? But capitalism as a whole just basically creates a surplus which they then divide up according to rules that are not our own, and not the rules that we're told about.
Okay, Bill next, and then Jason.
Sorry for shouting out earlier, but on a simple basis, actually, the example you gave of an academic textbook shows us a very fundamental problem in capitalism. For the starters, the universities are private institutions which are paid a capitation fee by the government, and they then add a top-up fee from the individual studying there, which derives the capitation by departments, which is top-sliced for library book buying. The costs of your academic textbook are derived from the cost of the typesetter, the editor, the proofreader, the managing director, and profits. Whereas once upon a time the publishers were riding the crest of a technological wave by making books available across the entire continent, where knowledge was very scarce. Nowadays they have to make their profits by withholding textbooks and knowledge and making it very hard to get hold of, partly by charging large fees based on the rent of copyright. And when in fact the transmission cost is virtually nil. I mean, either they could put it on the interweb and it would be really nil, or the actual cost of printing is entirely marginal to that. So when you go to the shops and pay £50 or £90 for an academic textbook, almost all of that is the labour of the intellectual labour that put it together. And in fact, one of the things they'll do is they've probably only printed 100 copies of your textbook, or a very short run like that. I don't know, between 100 and 500. Not and they get very annoyed when they have to give 6 away to the copyright library. They have to give you 10 to give to your friends, and you know they only have about 70 to sell in the end, and they have to make a profit out of that. But there is good news in the end, because Richard says his local library doesn't stock it, but for a very small fee, they are legally obliged to obtain a copy. One of the copies that the publisher had to give away. So in fact, if you went to your local library and asked for it, the entirely non-market mechanism would obtain it for you, even though it's not there. So there is a there is a happy end to this story. But I think it illustrates a problem in capitalism that the market has in fact held back technology in much the same way as Boulton and Watt's patent on the steam engine held back the development of the steam engine for around about 70 years.
Yes, I'd be interested to know how the supporter of capitalism would respond to some of these points. I'm sure nearly everybody in this room, if not everybody, remembers the collapse of the Soviet Union at the end of the 1990s. And most people agreed that the collapse of that system was, or at least we would interpret it as being the collapse of state capitalism, the failure of a capitalism which was predominantly run by the state. Well, just as that event proved to be historical, the events of the last 6 to 12 months have shown the failure of another of the aspects of capitalism, the failure of a predominantly private capitalism, which had of course been the tendency for which capitalism had been going globally since probably about the middle of the 70s. The fact that the state has now had to create